And we're working towards the same this year with Empower Women happening in August again, on the 29th of August. We would love to have you all there with us. We look forward to the mentorship circles happening. I believe these are very important, you know. It is aligned with what we are doing as Empower Women and Empower Her as well. And just seeing how, you know, we add value to those women that are trying to get to where you are sitting here. Thank you all for today. And thank you, Delia and Judith. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you to our sponsors. I'd like to now invite Anita for some announcements, but okay, she is coming. Let's give Anita a round of applause as she comes.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are truly privileged to host such an amazing group of women. It's so lovely to see how we have grown so much from 25 women in the room to now over 100. Thank you so much, everybody. I would also like to share a wonderful opportunity from Women on Boards. If you are looking for a mentor or a coach to support your personal or professional growth, please send an email with a brief description of your needs. Our chair, Loretta Sitole, will help connect you with a suitable mentor or coach. Please know that mentorship is offered free of charge, while coaching is paid service. We encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you, Anita. Whew, thank you so much. I'd just like to acknowledge that we have some people online as well. Welcome online. Please feel free to engage. You can type your questions, and later on you'll have an opportunity to engage with Ruth one-on-one, so that would be quite nice as well. So now I have the pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Ruth Anser. Ruth is a Johannesburg-based clinical psychologist with over 30 years of experience working with children, adolescents, and adults. Alongside her private practice, she has led corporate training and facilitation, helped leaders navigate the hidden emotional dynamics of the boardroom. She's an experienced medical expert, legal expert. Ruth has also appeared as a guest psychologist across a number of radio and television platforms. So please join me in warmly welcoming Ruth to the stage. Over to you, Ruth.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. I have a favor to ask. If everyone could take their phones, not just put them face down, but to actually put them away, like witness protection away, like pockets and bags. And just to tell you that I've put quite a lot of the content on slides, so I can make them available on email, so you don't have to worry about not having screenshots or not taking notes, because I'll make it available, and that's why I specifically put a lot of the information on the slides. And the reason I'm doing this is it's a trick I learned from Cindy Paluta. I went to a talk she gave at my child's school, and she said to us, please put your phones away, and we all put them down, and she said, not down, away. And then she told us about these studies that I then looked up. So I'll briefly mention, it's the illusion of multitasking. It's on the slides, if we can start with the slideshow. Oh, that's very small. Can we make that bigger, or is it? Can you read that? Okay. Your eyesight's better than mine. Okay. So neuroscientifically, we think we're great at multitasking. But neuroscientifically, it's a myth. What we're actually doing is task swapping, task switching. So your brain essentially is playing ping pong. You listen to me, you hear a buzz, bzz, whatever your sound is. You glance at the message, and then your brain has to manually reset and work out where we were in the presentation and where you left off. And every single switch comes with a cognitive tax, because the researchers showed that task switching can take up to reduce your productivity by 40%. In fact, every time you glance at your phone, it can take 20 minutes to regain the full focus that you may have had before, which is quite unbelievable. And when we did put our phones away, I realized I remembered a lot more about Cindy's talk than I would have, including where the studies came from and the 40% and 20%, which I then looked up. So psychologists, we call this a brain drain, because what's happening is even if your phone is off, you can still, but you can see it. There's part of your cognitive bandwidth is taken up by, I shouldn't look, I'm not going to look, it's okay not to look, or I wonder if something's happening there, whoops, I should have taken that, no, I'm not supposed to. So even that, so obviously if anyone's on call or you worried about little kids, you can just use your judgment. But if you can, it would be wonderful to have your full focus here. And in fact, they did a study which showed people who did exams with their phone in their bags, but next to their table, but next to them, those people did statistically significantly worse than the people whose bag was in a separate room, which is quite amazing. So actually, the further the distance from your phone, the better our minds work, which is amazing. My phone's also away. Okay. This is a cute thing I found. Attention is a limited resource. Every notification or glance and interruption asks your brain to restart. So out of sight, easier to stay engaged. Okay, so what we're going to look at today is we're talking about something we all experience, but we don't necessarily, we don't often think about or speak about. So the question is, have you ever found yourself responding very intensely to a situation while other people around you stay composed, doesn't seem to affect them? So the question is, if you are, all of you, mature, successful, professional women, and you handle budgets or important matters, massive projects, tight deadlines, daily, why do some things completely take you by surprise? Because you have such an intense emotional response. So a specific comment, a change in tone, or something unexpected happens, and you have this intensely emotional reaction, which is out of proportion to what is happening. So in those moments, your heart races, your face, you feel flushed, it's harder to breathe, your logic goes completely out the window, and you're wondering, why did I react like this? So, to understand why this happens, we need to understand what a trigger is. I used to refer to this as someone pressing my button. I'd say this to all my clients. When your button is pressed. Then I did a course called Schema Therapy, which is where I base a lot of the information I'm talking about today, and we use the word triggers. It's the same thing. I've also heard it spoken about, in the days of CDs. When your CD comes on, so that is the specific trigger. It's anything, a word, an event, an action, a tone, that sparks an immediately strong emotional reaction. It's actually a memory from the past. So it's a shortcut in the brain. And before your logical brain can process what's going on and can make sense of it, your body actually reacts to that emotional memory and causes intense emotions and sometimes even a shutdown. And that's what we're going to talk about. Why does that happen and how does that happen? So today we're going to unpack why these triggers happen. You can see I've put a lot in my slides. How they lead to what we call an emotional amygdala hijack. I can see I've left out a little punctuation mark. I'll fix that before I send the slides out. And how you can regain control of your responses. So I was interested to hear that Zama has spoken about the microaggressions. So we're not going to be talking about microaggressions. We're not going to be talking about overt discrimination or legitimate provocations, because those are real, they matter, and your responses to them are valid. We're talking about situations where the intensity of the event seems to be smaller than the strength of your emotional reaction. Okay, so what's actually happening in those moments is that you're not reacting just to what's happening then, you're actually reacting to the button. And that button connects to something much deeper, which was the consequence of experiences from long ago. And the reason why it feels so intense, and this is the sentence, our childhood installs the default settings for your emotional responses, the settings that you've been running on ever since. And often we don't realize what our default settings are. And people in therapy spend months looking at this. So what I want to do is give you an understanding, an introduction, so that you can start thinking about it and increasing your self-awareness about how this happens to you and why it happens to you. So when we all have core needs as children, and when those core needs are met, we are able to function in the world more easily when confronted with stress and pressure and disappointment than when we haven't had those core needs met. And the needs are to feel safe and protected, to have emotional stability. We need love and connection. We need the freedom to explore, but also to have boundaries, gentle boundaries that make us feel secure. We also need to have our feelings validated. Now, not many people get to have all those needs met, and of course you can function and be successful without having all those needs met, because we don't live in an ideal world. The problem is, when those needs aren't met, we are left with vulnerable parts of us that are easily triggered. So when needs aren't met, children don't think, my parents are having a hard time, my parents are dealing with their own triggers, my mother's got a boss that's being difficult and that's why she's short-tempered. We think there's something wrong with me. I'm a disappointment, I haven't been enough. And we carry those vulnerabilities into adulthood. So it's if we're still carrying our younger selves inside us. So in a framework called schema therapy, we call these child modes. And those modes are temporary emotional states. So just remember they're temporary. You're not stuck in them forever. But they do hold the raw feelings and memories of our unmet childhood needs. And in corporate settings, there are so many opportunities to have these triggered. Because, I specifically don't work in corporate. I run a private practice, and although I've done corporate training and facilitation, I realized that the corporate environment wouldn't suit my personality, because you guys are dealing with organizations, unless they're incredibly emotionally mature organizations. Generally, they're looking at profits, they're looking at success, they're looking at the bottom line. They're not really worried about how everyone feels at the end of the day. And so the environment can be quite punitive at times. You can have people in charge who might be good at what they're trained to do, but their people skills are very poor. So these are the kind of child modes I'd like you to think about in terms of what you default to, or what the people around you might default to. So we start with the vulnerable child. Within the vulnerable child, we've got the vulnerable child feels lonely, helpless, afraid, or abandoned. Then we have the angry or enraged child. So lots of frustration or intense resentment. Then we have the impulsive, the child who acts without thinking, needs immediate gratification, which is all children until about 5, 6. So, but if you get triggered to that part, you can recognize it. And then we do have happy children who feel joyful, playful, curious, and free. Now, obviously, no child is always that, but being able to be in touch with your spontaneous child is really important. Okay, so I spoke about this, the vulnerable child. We have these are the parts that hold our deepest pain and fear and insecurity. The way it shows up is, these are just some ways. There are lots of other ways, but these are the ones that I thought would be relevant. The lonely child, where you can feel empty, isolated, and misunderstood, even in a crowded boardroom. The abandoned child, where your fear is being left behind, not being needed, not being wanted, not being included. The abused child, where you feel targeted and victimized. The inferior child or the deficient child, where you feel that you're not good enough. A lot of the time that comes across in corporates or in every situation as imposter syndrome, where you feel that you are just fooling everyone and you're terrified that at some point someone will find out. Even the most successful, accomplished people that I've worked with talk about the imposter syndrome. It's just that they don't tell you about it. But a lot of people carry, and that's where our feelings of vulnerability are located in the child that feels deficient. And then the dependent child, where you feel overwhelmed by responsibility and you struggle to make decisions. Okay, then the angry and enraged child. This does protect us from being mistreated, but it doesn't do so well. The angry child feels intense frustration and resentment when things seem unfair. And the enraged child experiences explosive, out-of-control anger and wants to lash out. You might have experienced that with certain people in your work environment who, when they don't get their way, you see them responding like an angry child. I would say that's like a teenager. I have a teenage boy who reacts sometimes without... not able to contain, the person's not able to contain themselves because they're just going on emotion alone. Then there's the impulsive or undisciplined child who you either get frustrated instantly and you give up on boring tasks, or you act without thinking. Then we do have the contented and authentic child. So we all have these parts in us. Some of us have the angry child a little bit smaller and doesn't get triggered much. Some of us have our feeling of inadequacy much bigger. We all do have parts of us with the contented and authentic child. And when we can be in touch with that, that's lovely. Okay, now, this is the key part. Our modes lie dormant until something in your current life matches the emotional content of an old wound. So we're not always operating from our child modes, which is helpful because we have to be adults to maintain our jobs and to perform our roles as parents. But when there's an emotional match, what happens is what we call an amygdala hijack. So I'll just show you this within the slide. Your child schema modes lie dormant, stored in the past. They remain asleep until something in the present matches their old wounds from early life. So it's the old wounds that create the child models. When it's matched, you feel, you think, and you behave from the old wound, not from your wise or mature, healthy adults. And I'll talk later about who our healthy adult is and how we get in touch with her. So the child wakes up and takes over. Your feelings intensify, you react automatically, and your old patterns repeat. And it matches the feelings of the old wound. In fact, I've done it in the wrong order. Your current life event, something happens, it matches the event, it activates the child mode, and you feel and think and behave from the old wound. Okay, so now to explain what an amygdala hijack is. So first of all, this is what we have in our brain. So your amygdala it's very small and it's your alarm system. It's tiny, it's almond-shaped, and it detects threats and triggers our fight and flight responses. So we sometimes call this our primitive brain. It's the part of us that when we were our ancestors, if they saw there was a scary prehistoric animal coming towards them, the amygdala would set off the adrenaline needed to do something. So either to freeze, to hope they don't see you, because their eyesight wasn't very good, or to run really fast, so to get away from the danger. But as we've developed, we have the prefrontal cortex. And as you can see, it's that blue section on top. This is the logical, rational area of your brain that is responsible for logic, for thinking, for nuanced communication. It puts your brakes on your impulses. And in our teenagers, we see where their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. In fact, we've realized, we used to think that it develops at 20, 21, but because of MRI brain imaging, we now know that the prefrontal cortex is only fully developed in their late 20s, which is why the insurance companies don't insure or have much higher premiums for younger drivers. Because when you're running on impulse, when you think something's great in the moment, when it's just about your dopamine rush, you don't have the ability to put on your brakes and think fast enough. Some teenagers do, some young adults do, but not often enough, which is why teenagers are stupid. They do stupid things. A teenager I know very well and is very close to my heart did something very stupid. And when they were asked why, they said, I'm a teenager. We do stupid things. It's a teenage brain. Scientifically, the teenager was correct. But we were still very, very, very annoyed with him. So that is really why only when you're older are you able to have the kind of judgment and logic. The problem is, when something happens, our higher cortex doesn't work so well, and that's why we call it an amygdala hijack. So, the amygdala hijack is when your brain's alarm system completely overwhelms your thinking, rational brain. So the brain's emergency alarm going off too fast. And there you can see that when the higher cortex is working, you're generally in low emotion, but when it's disabled, you feel very intense emotion. And just be very clear that having a trigger is not a character flaw. It's a biological survival response. So, during a hijack, your alarm system completely overpowers your thinking brain. The amygdala floods your body with stress hormones and physically pulls blood away from your prefrontal cortex. So it pulls the plug on your ability to reason. And that is why, when you're reactive, you're not weak or unprofessional. Your nervous system genuinely believes you're under attack. So it was a system designed to protect us. But with the amygdala hijack, we're not able to think rationally. So when the amygdala takes full control, it disables your rational mind. It takes it offline. So that leaves you feeling blindsided. So in short, an amygdala hijack takes away our professional maturity and forces you to react from a place of childhood survival. So, I'm going to give you an example. Imagine your manager is giving you feedback on a project. They say, this report needs more detail. On the surface, that's just feedback. But if, as a child, every time you brought homework home, your parent would say, this isn't good enough. I hear in my practice often from people who really are very highly critical of themselves that their parents would say, if they got 90, what happened to the other 10%? Really, really harsh. So that is often what happens. So there can be an emotional match when you're told that your report needs more detail to the earlier memory of you didn't do this well enough. So what happens is in a split second, your vulnerable child is triggered. Suddenly you're not responding as the adults who calmly can consider feedback and say, oh, I need to provide more detail. You're responding as the child who felt inadequate, who you might feel frozen, you might feel ashamed. You'll start thinking, I'm a failure, I couldn't do this, they're all going to realize I know nothing. And you can apologize, you can feel tearful. And later you think, why did I react so strongly? What happened? I'm usually so professional. So your reaction feels so intense because it's not just about the report. It's about every time you felt inadequate before. The emotion you feel isn't just about the current event. It's the accumulated pain from every time this need was not met in childhood, and it all surfaces at once. So when your manager says it needs more detail, you're not reacting to that. What you're reacting to every time you felt not good enough as a child, every time you felt criticized, every time you tried and it still didn't feel like it's enough. Okay, so I'm going to read you some scenarios, and just if you've got pen and paper, or just think about whether this is something that resonates with you. So this is the performance review that wasn't negative. So you receive your annual performance review. Overall, it's glowing. You've got exceeds expectations, you're a pleasure to work with, delivered outstanding results. But in the area for growth, which no one has weaknesses, it's only areas of challenge. Or, your manager's written one sentence, could work on pushing back more effectively when her plate is full. Your eyes lock into that sentence, the rest is blurred. Your chest feels tight, a familiar heat spreads across your back. You develop a thought in a loop, which is, they think I'm a pushover. They've noticed this for months. Someone had to write it down eventually. Everyone knows. They think I'm pathetic. So instead of feeling proud of the 9 paragraphs of praise, you spend the rest of the day rewriting your own definition of failure. You draft a 3-paragraph email explaining why you do sometimes struggle to say no. You mentally replay every meeting from the last 6 months, searching for evidence of this weakness. You stay up late thinking of ways that you can show that you are assertive and you do push back. So the question is, who's actually reading that review? Is it the accomplished professional who has a number of successful projects under her belt, or the younger version of you who learned that any mention of a flaw no matter how incidental or how developmental or how small, meant you weren't good enough. And that good was never good enough to feel safe, and only depended on the next time that you did really, really well. So I'm just wondering, you don't have to answer, but anyone vaguely resonates? It does? I remember once getting feedback, it was many, many years ago, and it was a course I was giving, and there was one person who didn't like the course. And I thought about it for days and days and days. And then luckily, my healthy adult kicked in, even though I didn't really know about healthy adults. And I counted the other reviews. And there were 27, and 26 were glowing. And I spent quite a few days on the person who didn't actually like me. And I realized afterwards, why am I spending 3 days on one person's review when there were 26 other people who really loved the course? That made me feel better. But in the moment, in fact, not just in the moment, for 3 days, I wallowed in, I can't believe she doesn't like me. I can't believe she didn't enjoy the course. Okay. So another scenario is the message that was blue-ticked. I've learned this in my practice when people goes, she blue-ticked me, or he blue-ticked me. And I go, and? It's like, that means they've ghosted me. Well, then you have to learn what ghosted means. But so you send a thoughtful proposal to a senior leader. 2 hours pass, no response. But then you see them online in a WhatsApp group that you're on, but they're joking with someone else. And you realize they've been online. They're just not answering you. So you start feeling really anxious. Your mind fills the silence. They hated it. They're avoiding me because something was bad. They think I'm stupid. They don't trust me. They've sent it off to someone else and they're laughing about it. You reread your message 6 times, searching for your fatal flaw. You draft a follow-up, just checking if you had any initial thoughts. You delete it. You draft another one. Realizing I may have missed some context in my note, happy to clarify. You send that one, then you feel sick with regret because you sound insecure. By the time they finally respond, great, let's discuss Thursday. You've already spent 3 hours in a spiral of shame. You've cancelled a workout. You've decided you need to redo the entire proposal. So again, who was waiting for that reply? Is it the competent leader who has sent hundreds of successful proposals? Or is it the younger version of yourself who learned that silence was dangerous, that a delayed response meant disapproval, and that approval was the only thing keeping you from either being abandoned or dismissed? And then the meeting that was moved up. Your manager sends a calendar invite. Let's move our one-on-one to this afternoon. I need to touch base on a few things. No context. No, everything's fine, don't worry. Just a vague reschedule. Your brain immediately runs through the worst-case scenarios. They're retrenching me. There's been a complaint about me. They've pulled one of my projects. And you scan the past week for mistakes. You land on a minor error in a report from 3 days ago. A typo that no one mentioned. You decide this must be it. They're going to confront you. They're going to say they've lost confidence in you. You spend the next 3 hours before the meeting in a state of low-grade terror. You can't focus. You reread old emails. You practice explanations that sound that clarify but aren't offensive, and you're nauseous. Then the meeting comes and they say, oh, just wanted to see if you'd like to lead the new client pitch. You've been doing so well. You feel enormous relief, and then you feel exhausted. And then you feel ashamed for the 3 hours you've just lost to a story you completely made up. Who who actually saw that calendar invite? Is it the high-achieving woman who has already proved her value? Or is it the younger version of yourself who learned that unpredictable authority figures meant danger, that surprise check-ins meant punishment, and vigilance was the only way not to be caught off guard? And now this one, left out of the birthday lunch. You're a new team member. You notice that your colleagues went to a birthday lunch for another teammate. You weren't invited. And when you ask, someone casually says, "Oh, we just grabbed a quick bite. Didn't want to make a big deal." This mirrors childhood experiences where you were excluded from play dates or from family gatherings, reinforcing the belief, I'm different, I don't belong, I'm unlovable, they don't like me, I don't fit in. So you withdraw. You stop contributing in meetings, you eat your meals alone, or you overwork to earn belonging. The exclusion may have been unintentional, but the emotional content of feeling invisible has triggered your vulnerable child. So in every scenario, the trigger is ordinary, but the reaction seems disproportionate. So, if you can see this, it says an amygdala hijack takes away your professional maturity and forces you to act from a place of childhood survival. So we have our vulnerable child who's sitting there experiencing deep sadness, fear, and unmet emotional needs. You have your angry child saying, "It's not fair, I'm mad." You have your impulsive child who says, "I want it, it acts on urges, seeks instant gratification. And then you have your compliant child who suppresses feelings and strives for approval. We'll get to compliant, it's a way of coping. So I'd like you to think about your recent boardroom meetings or your own workplace interactions, where the last time you felt your heart race or your jaw clench and an overwhelming urge to shut down or lash out. Which child was actually sitting in your chair? At the end of the talk, when we have our breakaway, that's going to be something you'll have a chance to discuss. And it doesn't have to be in the work. It can also be in your personal life, where this can happen every single day. Now, to truly understand reactions, you need to know a vital rule of psychology. Child modes never act alone. Not only can our child modes be triggered by others, people that we work with, people that we live with, but they can also be triggered by something internal. And these are what we call our parent modes. They're dysfunctional parent modes. They're not healthy parent modes. And these are the things that we internalize, the harsh voices of early authority figures. That can be our teachers, our parents, but it can also be societal expectations. And this is a lot where I see the eating, disordered thinking about food and eating, the societal expectations. Now, in corporate women, these modes act as the ultimate internal critics, continually triggering your vulnerable child. So this is the parent voice that you've internalized. It doesn't mean it was necessarily your parent, but that's what we call it. So they're the voices of criticism, high standards, or demanding rules. And they're often based on how your actual parents or authority figures treated you. Okay, so here are the critical and punitive voices. You can see that scary-looking critical parent voice saying to the little child, "This isn't good enough. You can do better. You must be perfect." Now remember that that voice is inside you as the adult, but it's your child mode that is responding to it. So, yes?
To interrupt you.
Sure.
There's a car that's blocking an entryway or something. It's KT00. Okay, they found it. Thank you.
No problem. And that if that person's got an internalized critical voice, they're going to be thinking, why did I do that? I should have realized. How can I park there? So please know it's okay. So that critical voice instills internalized expectations, constant self-evaluation, and fear of failure. But then we also have the punitive parent voice. Now, sometimes that voice is towards us, often, and sometimes we direct it towards other people. But that's the voice that says to us, you bad, you deserve this pain, you should punish yourself. So it leads to feelings of shame and worthlessness and a need for self-punishment. And this is how it shows up in the corporate world. So the critical parent, your internal voice says you must be flawless. Failure is not an option. The corporate manifestation is the voice that pushes you to do 80-hour work weeks, or even 60 hours, or even 50 hours, more than is healthy to do. It demands perfect execution and zero mistakes, and it convinces you that your worth is entirely tied to your productivity and to the opinions of the people you report to. And that figure behind her saying no mistakes is not her manager, it's her internalized punitive or critical parent. And then the punitive parent is the internal voice that says you're a failure, you should have known better. This is severe punishing self-blame. It fuels intense imposter syndrome, and it convinces you that a minor mistake means you're professionally incompetent and deserve to be exposed. Now, because we have our child modes, which can be triggered by either external trigger or by our internalized critical parent modes, what happens to protect ourselves is we develop automatic survival strategies. Now, these might have been helpful at some point, and they try to protect you, but they actually don't protect you very well. So we have to work out what our survival strategies are. The first one is surrender, and there are many, many types. So I'm just going to talk about the ones that we often see in the corporate context: avoidance or the overcompensator. And that happens when your child mode is triggered. Your brain instantly deploys a coping mode to survive the emotional distress. So, your compliance surrender, one of the ways it comes out is also self-sacrifice. The self-sacrifice person is the one who feels they've got to do for other people, even at the expense of their own needs. And so they will do everything. This isn't necessarily in corporate, but it could be, but they do everything for everybody, and then they build resentment. The other one, another part of the compliance surrender is you people please, you agree too quickly, you can't say no, you apologize constantly, you act as if your inner critic is correct, and you surrender to the feeling that something's wrong with you. So you let others cross your boundaries or let them take credit because you want to avoid conflict. The hidden cost is resentment, burnout, and a complete loss of your executive voice. Then we have the detached protector, the avoidance, the runs away from pain. These are often people that you decide are colds or they don't show any emotion. And I've often found people who seem, especially if they come into my therapy room and they're just not giving me anything and they seem resentful, and then my vulnerable child goes, they don't like me. They don't think I'm good. And then I'm surprised when I get a feedback from the person who referred them. Oh, they think you're so lovely, they're doing so well, they're so comfortable. And I want to go, they're comfortable. Like, they don't smile. They always look as if they're criticizing and judging me. And then very quickly, because I'm a therapist, I see the vulnerability and the fear of connecting. because they detach because they don't want people to see their vulnerability and fragility. So what happens, the detached protector at work, you come across maybe as emotionally flat, you check out mentally during tough meetings, or you intellectualize. You very, very rational. That's to hide your anxiety. But this cuts you off from painful feelings by building a cold, unapproachable wall around you. This is often what happens when people maybe struggle to form relationships or struggle to trust because they've been hurt before. So they form a wall around them so they don't let people know that they really care about them because they're used to being hurt. So it's the same kind of self-protection mechanism, your detached protector. But the hidden cost is severe disconnection from your team, from your own intuition, and from your professional joy, because it makes it harder for people to connect with you. And then this one, detached self-soother. You can see what I might identify with because I had to find a piece of cake that I like. So there's the cheesecake. So at work, the detached self-soother doesn't want to feel the pain. And this is where we see potential addictions coming in because you don't want to feel what your vulnerable child is feeling, so you do things that numb you. It could also be the person who watches lots and lots and lots and lots of series. It's normal to watch series, but when you watch it to such an extent that you're not doing anything else because you want to avoid the feeling. So you seek compulsive distractions to numb stress, you doom scroll, you stress eat, you over-exercise, or you pour a drink the second you get home. That's the detached self-soother, trying to make yourself feel better. But it does temporarily shut down the anxiety of a lonely or angry child through repetitive numbing behaviors. But it wastes time, prolongs anxiety, avoids the actual problem, and often causes other problems. I mean, that's a lot of what we see is how people use their detached self-soother in order not to feel things. But then what they're doing becomes a problem in itself. Okay, then we have the overcompensator, the overcontroller. So then we have the perfectionist overcontroller. This we see a lot in your worlds, where you want to make sure everything's perfect because you don't want to feel vulnerable, you don't want to feel that something's wrong. You micromanage, you can't delegate, control everything. If you don't see this in yourself, you probably see it in some of the people you work with. It fights the fear of being not good, and you act defensively to constructive criticism. This protects your inner vulnerable child by striking first, because if you feel professionally threatened, you use aggression to keep people at distance. You make people frightened of you. But it damages workplace relationships, it can ruin your reputation, and it alienates you from peers. Okay, so what actually happens inside us? So an old wound is touched, and your inner critic immediately steps in and whispers, "You aren't good enough." That harsh voice will then trigger your inner child, who instantly panics and feels alone or feels insecure, feels small, feels helpless, feels angry. Because the emotional pain is too much to bear, your brain automatically deploys a coping mode. And the coping mode is you over-control, or you shut down, or you attack. This is the hidden chain reaction behind every single amygdala hijack. So when these modes take over, they hijack your expertise. And how do we fix it? We do it by intentionally calling forward your healthy adult mode. So our healthy adult mode I mentioned at the beginning, you can see the guy in green. The healthy adult thinks logically and proportionately, considers multiple perspectives, and regulates our emotions. We all have healthy adults because our healthy adults are sitting around this table listening, looking at me, giving me the correct bodily cues. And the reason that you guys have jobs is because your healthy adult is strong enough to be present most of the time it needs to. Now, your triggered child. Our triggered children think in black and white absolutes. They only see threat or rejection, and they are flooded with intense emotion. So when that triggered child takes over, they hijack your expertise. Now, a healthy adult is our rational, compassionate, grounded part of you. It's the part that can observe the room, acknowledge the emotional trigger, and make a conscious choice about how to respond. So, I mean, some of the young adults I work with who have some self-destructive ways of being because of their prefrontal cortex and their dysfunctional personalities and habits, I'm always saying to them, which part of you was acting when you decided to do that thing? And what I'm thinking is that very stupid, very dangerous, very reckless thing. And I want them to recognize that it's the impulsive child or and I often say, where's your mature, healthy adult part of you that needs to be in charge? And sometimes one of them came back recently and said, I just want to tell you, my healthy adult was there the whole night. And I was very, very pleased. Okay, so when your healthy adult goes offline, in that moment, the child part is holding the steering wheel. The healthy adult is temporarily offline. It happens so quickly that you often don't realize it till afterwards. And the strategy to manage the situation is to see when it's happening and to get the healthy adult back into the front seat, driving the car. So your healthy adults is the buffer that can acknowledge the inner child's pain without letting it drive your behavior. Engaging your healthy adults mode after being triggered requires a deliberate transition from reactive emotional states to a logical and strategic mindset. Because a trigger often hijacks the brain, taking the adult offline, you've got to follow a sequence to down-regulate your nervous system and regain, I think it's control. So that is what you guys need to learn to do. So from hijack to handled, engaging your healthy adults. Your goal is not to become emotionless. It's to shorten the distance between your emotional hijack and returning to your healthy adults. Your healthy adult is not cold. She's regulated, she's strategic, she's grounded, she's compassionate. She thinks clearly even when there's enormous pressure and stress. She doesn't disappear when she's triggered, but she does sometimes simply get temporarily overrun by our older survival modes. And that's important to recognize. Your child modes are temporary modes that hold the feeling, and our coping modes are ways that we thought we protected ourselves, and we do protect ourselves, but they don't always work. And what I sometimes tell people to do is when they have coping modes that aren't helpful, I tell them to talk to their coping modes and say, thank you for helping me. I've got somebody who doesn't want to fall asleep because she doesn't want to wake up and realize the loss of a partner. So for a few years now, she's struggled to fall asleep. And we spoke about the fact that her desire to avoid sleep, so avoidance was the coping mechanism, is to avoid that feeling of the grief in the morning. But what we actually spoke about is how to look at her sleep as helping her have the resilience to manage the grief she is always going to feel in the mornings. And then we spoke, luckily she's known me and doesn't think I'm a bit cuckoo when I do this. We spoke to that coping mode and said, thank you for trying to help. And you've wanted to protect her from feeling the pain. But the way you're protecting her by not letting her fall asleep is actually not working. And hopefully, by being able to recognize what the coping mode is, think about it, and reframe what sleep actually does, that sleep is restorative, not just what's going to happen before she has to feel the grief, but something that will help her because she'll feel stronger to feel the grief and then get on with her day, feeling the grief but surviving the grief. So that's just another way where there was a coping mode. Okay. So the first thing you have to do is immediate physical de-escalation. Before you can think logically, you have to calm the physical surge of adrenaline and break the emotional feedback loop. This is what we suggest for people with panic attacks. If they don't have, those who have their quick benzos, tranquilizers next to them, they take it because it does the same thing. But also the deep breathing. Because when you breathe deeply, you're signaling to your brain that you are safe. So the first thing you do when you recognize what's happening is slow down and take deep breaths. And you work out which one works for you. There's so many different methods. Because when you are breathing slowly, it signals to your amygdala that you're safe. And it gives your rational brain time to come back online. So you can just count to 10 if that's all you've got time for, because even that brief pause forces your prefrontal cortex to start working again. I don't know if you know about box breathing. So what I like is that it's easy to remember. 4, 4, 4, 4. You inhale for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, you hold for 4, and you repeat at least 4 cycles. So it's 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. Now, any of these breathing techniques are useful. You obviously have to do what you can do in the moment, because you might not always be in a place where you can, just go outside into nature and feel your breath like our person there. Because your body cannot remain in peak panic while you're breathing slowly and rhythmically. You're sending a message to your body that your body is safe. You're sending your brain a corrective message. I'm not being attacked. I am sitting in a conference room with fluorescent lighting and mediocre coffee, and there is a conference room, and also humor does help regulate your nervous system as well. Now, there's also something called the water cooler reset. This is physically stand up if you can. When I was doing work to help lawyers in litigation, we were speaking earlier, about what happens when they have an amygdala hijack, when they're standing in front of a judge who seems not to like them, and their opposing advocate has really been vicious. What I used to say is, just say, please, my lord, I need a quick break to go to the bathroom, or I need a quick break to get some water. And I was doing these interventions with a very experienced advocate, so she knew that they can't say no to you. And even just that, getting away from where you're standing, walking away, having a break, however small, and no one can stop you saying, please excuse me. You might need to run to the toilet or start coughing. You walk away if possible. You step away. You physically remove yourself from the trigger. That helps lower your emotional intensity. As I put, you go to the bathroom, the kitchen, if possible outside. Outside is the best. Anywhere that interrupts the emotional loop. This isn't avoidance, physical regulation. And the movement tells your nervous system the danger has passed enough for me to regain control. It's actually, I had whooping cough, so I did that a lot. And I just, one of the guys who comes around must have opened my recycling and put it on the person across the road's pavement. So she went on the WhatsApp group, and I was busy that day, so I didn't look. And she put, who emptied their rubbish bin on my pavement? This is disgusting of them. And then she took close-ups of the pharmacy boxes. Now, because my married name is different to my maiden name, no one recognized it. But it was my meds, my husband's meds, my children's meds. And because we have managed to pass on anxiety and ADD and stuff, we all have meds that should be confidential. You don't want the WhatsApp group looking at it. And then someone sent me a message saying, Ruth, I think your recycling is on the pavement across the road. Please look at those messages. I was furious. Obviously, I didn't put them there. And then one of the, you get these women on WhatsApp groups, all men, and one of them put, that's disgusted. They must be named and shamed. How dare they do this? So I phoned the person who had done the photography, and I was so furious. And I was so furious that I actually got tearful in my fury. I said, you have humiliated me, even though only one or two people knew my married name. I said, to put the names of to clearly put medical information. And she was probably she was cross with us. And I was so angry. And then she said, I'm really sorry. And then I started feeling so bad for her. I said, no, it's okay. I was just really upset. And then she sent me a message saying, I'm so sorry. And then I wrote back saying, please don't worry. And then she said, can I take you out for coffee? I said, yes, but not as an apology, just to get to know my neighbor. And we've never done the coffee. But I felt so guilty because she was just triggered. She was triggered because she thought someone's taking advantage of me. They don't care. Of course I didn't take advantage of them. Of course somebody opened my recycling. The woman across the road who's such an idiot who wants to be named and shamed, when I see her, I just don't look at her. That's my very mature response. But that is the equivalent. We're all going to do that, but in a corporate setting, be very careful. Okay, we are nearly finished, if that's time-wise. Okay. Okay, step 2 is your mode check-in and self-validation. What you then need to do is label your feeling. Take a 60-second pause, if you've got it, to identify your active mode. This obviously is in the things you're going to be sent. Saying to yourself, this is my angry child, or this is my vulnerable child, roaring right now because I feel unseen, or I feel criticized. Say this to yourself out loud if you're alone, or silently if you're in the bathroom stall. Then speak to yourself with warmth. It makes total sense that I feel furious right now because this trigger matches my childhood feelings. It's okay to feel it. Validation, you're not being indulgent, but it is the fastest route through the feeling, not around it. We don't want to avoid the feeling because then you're going to spend 3 days, worrying about the one bad feedback sheet instead of 5 minutes. Then, once your logical brain is back online, separate the workplace facts, the objective facts, from your emotional interpretations. Challenge your interpretation, so you're going to shift from my manager hates my work or my manager hates me to my manager requested specific edits because a client needs a different format. My manager needs more detail because it needs to be, there needs to be more, the timelines need to be added, etc. Identify the plot. Recognize that the lonely child may see a plot to exclude them, where the healthy adult sees standard human behavior, daily corporate stress, or maybe just people being thoughtless. Okay, so now the next step is to move into assertive, healthy adult action. The healthy adult takes action based on strategy and boundaries rather than impulsive reactions. I'm sure you've heard this in skills training. Use I statements. State facts objectively to request clarity. Negotiate boundaries. So you use factual statements to set limits. And also your healthy adults. So, for example, I can't complete this report by Friday with my current workload, but I can deliver a high-quality version by next Tuesday. So that's the factual statements to set your limits. Now, your healthy adult can also plan ahead for things that you know might trigger you. So 2 of these tricks or rules is called one meaningful connection rule. If networking events trigger your lonely child, I know so many people have to go to all these things because they're required to, but they actually hate them. Remove the pressure to work the room, commit to having just one genuine, one high-quality conversation, and then allow yourself to think, I've done it. The exit ticket. Decide in advance exactly how long you're going to stay. It's something that you're worried about or that you know you'll be uncomfortable. So just say, I'm here for 45 minutes, or I'm here for an hour. When your brain knows it isn't trapped, your amygdala can stay calmer, and it allows you to remain present and polished. Okay, so now building the mode over time. I'm sorry, that's very small, but it's to make the healthy adults mode your default response. You have to use structured tools. So you have to work out your patterns. There are mode monitoring diaries, and in the email pack, in the emails, or in the pack that I'm going to send, I'm also going to put an example of a mode diary, which you can then use. So it says 5 minutes a week. I would say 5 minutes every time you're triggered. Track 3 things. What was the trigger? Describe it. I.e., my colleague took credit. Mode activated my angry child. It was an unfairness schema. The healthy adult response. I sent a clarifying email with my contributions listed factually. And then just to always remember, your trigger is not your identity. And then you will get triggered again. It's not a failure. The only failure is staying in the hijacked state without a plan to return. Your healthy adult's not a robot. She's a wise, boundary-having, strategic woman who knows her worth is not determined by one email, one meeting, or one birthday cake not being shared. Next time you feel the heat, you feel the heat rise, stop, breathe, label, fact-checked, and then act. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just deliberate. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. TK, I don't know if my mic is on. Thank you. Ruth, thank you so much for those insights. And I'm sure by the ums and nods around the room, I think we all need therapy.
I'm in Plegari. I'm not far.
So there you have it. So we are going to have a break, but I don't know if you want to maybe go through a round of questions first before the break. I think we can take 2 or 3 questions.
Sure.
and then we'll have the break. All right, there's a microphone for questions. Okay, Anita, can you help? Can we see by a show of hands if there are any questions? And online, TK will tell me if there are any questions online. Okay, there's 1, 2 in the room, and then we'll check online. Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, my question is, as a leader of people, we obviously have our own emotions, our own child, parent, whatever, and we're dealing with people who are also dealing with that. How do we identify, without also patronizing the person to say, well, this is you reacting here. How do you deal with people who are in that state and don't recognize that they're in that state? They actually
Someone to help you work out why you're responding in this way so often, because it is something that is going to be difficult for you, or it is causing you problems. And you say it in a way that you say it in a caring way. I don't want this to be the reason you don't get a promotion, or I don't want this to be a reason why others don't want to work with you, or I don't want this to be a reason why people can't give you feedback. So it's important that you can look at what is happening and even just say to find different ways to manage when the situation comes up. Because I think if it's coming up so often, clearly the person is jeopardizing themselves. Because otherwise, if it's just once, you don't have to go, there's a vulnerable child there, you've got to go to a therapist. But if it's a pattern, I would identify the pattern in general terms by, you seem to be avoiding this meeting. And I've asked, and I'm just wondering if that's, often when it sounds like when they're difficult conversations, you just keep putting it off. Or something like you got very angry when this happened, and it did have an impact, and maybe you need to think about if we can get you some help, or if you can find some help to manage it differently. So that's how I deal with it. Sure.
All right, there's a second question, and then we'll go online.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'll ask. Can I continue? Okay. Ruth, thanks. I think the insights were just poking at my previous life as well, personally. But I think the question is that fearful child. You are grown up and you become, I think because of that, then your voice becomes smaller, especially in the workplace. And you become that because also you experience leadership that is also, we call it narcissist, because someone now they are good to you, then the next moment they don't want to talk to you. So as a leader yourself, you want to protect your team, but you are that ground that the elephant is walking on, and you tend to take it all. When do you say it's enough? But then without being rude at the same time.
I think that's a great question, and I think that affects so many people, that you are dealing with sometimes, especially in corporates, highly, a lot of the people that you work with, not necessarily other women, but sometimes highly narcissistic and used to getting their own way. And what is very important to recognize is that your vulnerable child might be frightened, but you wouldn't be sitting there if you weren't capable and worthy. There's a difference between being completely passive and being aggressive, when you said not being rude. Being assertive is incredibly important skill. And when we talk about courage, it's not doing things that you find easy. It's, people might say, oh, you're so brave to, climb a mountain. But if the person finds climbing mountains very easy, they're not brave, they just can do it. It's courage is doing something that you need to do that's hard, but you're able to do it anyway. And I think it would be about recognizing your worth and being able to be assertive by being clear and saying, and pointing out directly when someone is being abusive. So again, that's not necessarily a trigger because of your own things. Well, you might be triggered more. So what happens when you have maybe a corporate bully? The people who don't feel that they don't have their frightened child are not going to be as affected because they don't get triggered. But the person who does have their vulnerable child who feels under attack when the person is bullying, that's going to be much harder. But it is important to recognize and to also say, to stand up for when you're being abused. And it's hard. I've done a lot of work with whistleblowers whose lives are in ruins. They're such brave people, but it's really, really hard. So I know that's an extreme version of saying stop bullying me and stop cheating, but it is really hard because a lot of people the people that you're dealing with might be very powerful. So you also have to be strategic. And that's where the mentoring is so important, where you can go to other women who deal with this to say, this is what's happening. This is how I'm being affected. Because we can't be too scared to make our voices heard, but you also do have to, at the same time, be strategic.
One more question online. Anita will read it.
Yes, we do have two. So the first one is from Vuyo. When you find yourself in a psychologically unsafe environment as the only woman in the room, how do you navigate that culture while remaining true to your values and authentic self? How do you engage constructively without becoming defensive and continue to lead with confidence, integrity, and professionalism despite the challenges?
So that's incredibly difficult. And I think recognizing how difficult it is important. And again, getting support so you don't feel you're going mad. Because I think that there is, you have to recognize, and I think that's again where the more subtle misogyny or the more subtle sexist attitudes come from. When it's overt, it's almost easier because you can call it out and others see it. But when it's subtle, people think you're overreacting. So I think by being very self-aware and also, again, get support from other people who've been in that situation, but always remind yourself that even though it feels personal, you're dealing with a society which we have inherited this, very male-dominated strength and attitude, and it's so entrenched. And also we judge so harshly. So women who are assertive are seen as aggressive. If you lose your temper, you're seen as being out of control, while men are seen as being passionate. So we're already on so many on our back feet. Very important to just keep remembering that you've got a voice, that you don't have to put up with sexist attitudes and like jokes, it's such a joke, don't you have a sense of humor? I'm sorry to put on that voice, but it's my sexist male voice. So to also hold the boundaries and get support. But it's such a difficult environment. And because also there's a toxicity that many men don't realize because they're just so used to it. It's also quite good maybe finding some allies, even amongst the men, who you see are more open-minded and can see what's happening in the room. But it is a very, very difficult situation. But it doesn't mean, if it's abusive, you've got to do something. But otherwise, it's good to challenge these people. I was a little girl who hated the word chick because I was open-minded. I hated it when boys around me, and in the 80s, people would say, I saw a chick, and I'd go, little bird. And people would laugh, no sense of humor. But the people that I'd say it to, when they saw me again, didn't necessarily talk about chicks. So it's okay to call people out.
Thank you so much. We have the last question from Lily. How can emotionally charged disagreements be redirected into productive dialogue?
Very, very good point. I think to be able to recognize when it's happening and when it's building up, and to even say, I don't know if we're getting anywhere now, can we come back to this? I think when things are getting emotionally charged, generally you're not going to come out with something helpful. You're not going to be speaking from your healthy adult, and you're not going to be spoken to from a healthy adult. You're going to be hearing, angry children, or you're going to be hearing. So to actually, when it's getting to that stage, I would say try call it and say, I don't think that we're getting anywhere now. Can we pick this up after lunch? Or can we reschedule a time? Because, or you can even say, I need some, even if you can say, I need some time. I want to continue this conversation, but I need time to think. It's more important to ask for time than to continue into something that then starts escalating. In your personal lives as well, it's very hard to have anything constructive happening when you're both speaking from activated, triggered child states.
Thank you. Another round of applause, please. Okay, so we are going to go into a 10-minute break. Let's keep it to 10 minutes. But before we break, I want the facilitators to just either stand or put their hands up, because we are going to, immediately after the break, our breakout sessions. So these are smaller groups where, I know some of us are shy to speak in a bigger group, so we'll just go into groups. And how we will separate the groups, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've got 5 facilitators. So, 6 facilitators, okay. So what we can do is we can have the ladies that aren't facilitators on this side form one group. The ladies that aren't facilitators on this side form one group. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, right? No. Okay, well, so from this side, then maybe you can join the 4th row over there. And if you've got any extras, then you can just fill up the last row over there. Is a bit short on people. And then each facilitator, you can just find a spot outside. I think about 4 or 5 people should be fine based on the numbers. If you see that you are the 6th person, then you can just join. And I don't know if you want to stand next to your groups so that they know you and they can sort of find you. And then we can have the 10-minute break, and then immediately after the break, go into our breakout sessions. Ruth will stay with the online team, with the online people, and yeah. Okay, thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Okay.
When do we come back?
Okay, the break is 10 minutes. The breakout sessions are until 12:30. Okay, all right, thank you.
Can I get a copy? Oh, okay. Okay.
Then we need to send that to the online participants.
Yes. But we can also send this. Yes, yes. Can we ask? Sure. Can we ask TK to put this on, to put this somewhere on screen for the online, or to email, or yeah.
Yeah, I think you can explain it to the facilitators and then they'll
Thank you. That was
Sure.
lovely.
Oh, thank you.
explain to the
Sure. Is there orange juice there? Is there an orange juice? Thank you. I think I saw something.
Thank you for that, Ruth.
Pleasure, pleasure.
I wanted to ask you what I think. So I'm an Enneagram practitioner as well,
Oh, wow.
and I see the parallel with the child mode
Right.
and the dominant behaviors or the motivation behind the behavior.
Right.
Motivation behind it for each of the Ennea types.
Yes.
Because, like you spoke about the one that's the helping others. and
Self-sacrifice.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the same as the Ennea 2, which
Yes.
is considered help.
That's right.
So, yeah,
There's
so
a lot of overlap.
So well, I think it's
Well, a lot of the just different labels, different ways of understanding.
because
Yes.
those child modes inform the behavior
Exactly.
of all of us.
Yes.
And then that's when. So it was interesting.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Thank you for sharing.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So don't you want to have something before you get online?
I don't know if I can. Oh. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to. Thank you. So, as we start. Oh, don't worry if you can't find it.
There's peach and mango in
that's wonderful. Okay. So, pleasure. Are we there?
Yeah, so
Must I move this away? Do I switch this off?
no, you can keep it aside. You don't
Okay.
have to really, in
What-
case if they want. So we're gonna focus on the chats.
Is this yours?
Yes.
How nice is this MacBook Air?
So they're gonna post their questions here, and then we'll able to answer.
Okay.
Yeah. Tika, let us know when we can start.
How many people are online? Do we know?
Let me just check in. Yeah, it says 15 participants.
Okay. Can we do it so I'm not at an angle?
Okay, you can keep it in front of you.
Maybe I must move this chair. Ooh, what happened here?
No, it's not yours. No.
Okay. I'm going to be, no slides.
Taking questions.
But do they have this? Or,
Yes, we.
They said after the commission will send it, not now.
oh, you can send it now to them. Yeah.
To them.
But no other slides, just me. Oh, I'm already alive.
Okay.
I mean, it's good to know I'm live. I didn't realize. Oh. So, is everybody there and ready? Okay. Are they able to respond verbally? No, they can only type. Can't they move?
Yeah, so he has shared this
Okay.
this thing there.
Okay, so can't we get others to move, and then we can we not get them to move so I can at least converse? Because it's quite interactive. So can they move a bit so I can at least hear them speak, so we can run a session? Because it's a discussion rather than another lecture. Okay, thank you. Sorry to be difficult.
You know, the speaker is connected everywhere.
Oh, is it connected everywhere?
Yes. So
Oh. Oh, no. Oh, okay, we can't do that. Okay.
Okay, they're going outside.
Alternative? Yes. I'll do headset.
Yes, yeah, let's do that.
Oh, that's excellent. Because I'd rather that
Yeah,
that
because-
people can speak to me, because otherwise it's quite difficult. Okay, I'm going to be getting headsets, which means what you say here won't be transmitted to everybody. Oh, that's excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it fine?
Can everyone hear me? Okay, great.
Are they speaking?
Let's ask one of them to speak.
Can one of you please speak so I can hear you? Oh, they can hear me. Excellent, but I can't see them. But it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not going to ask. I can hear. Thank you. So, hi everyone. It is a bit difficult not to be able to see you, but I know you're there, and I hope you are able to follow along and hear me speak and see the PowerPoint. But now just know that it's private, only I can hear what you're saying and the other people on the webinar. So are there any questions? Somebody actually, there was a question, but now she's taken her phone away. Did the person who asked the question want to, unless I open chat, is the person who asked the question want to re-ask? It was something about when there's a narrative about you, that isn't necessarily true. Is that person there? Okay. Well, is there anyone else who'd like to ask a question? And maybe I'll just open the chat. Oh, there is a chat. Okay. Yes, I can. Please go ahead. Yeah, no, that's a very difficult circumstance. And if you're not able to clarify why the perceptions are wrong, I would encourage you just to continue working as authentically and professionally as you can. But if there is a way to challenge the incorrect perceptions, that might be helpful, because otherwise, you carry it around. But I think that if it comes up in a situation where you know that the responses towards you are twisted in a certain way, maybe you can challenge that. But apart from being able to try to dismantle anything that's inaccurate, I think that the way that you contain and handle yourself is by just being as authentic as you can. And if it starts becoming a problem, where it becomes a problem, it needs to be addressed. But it does sound like it's quite a difficult, potentially toxic environment that you're in.